Netroots Nation, please welcome Senator Kamala Harris.
Hidden figures, right? Oh, that was fantastic, fantastic. What's up, Netroots Nation? I'm so glad to be here. So glad to see you guys. And of course, it's great to be in New Orleans. So I know you've had a long day of just feeding all of the big brains that are here and enjoying each other's company and rededicating ourselves to the fight. And I'm honored to be with you. So let's just talk about what I think we've been talking about all day, and we'll talk about tomorrow. We're here because our future depends on it. We're here because we came for the future of our children, and we're here because the future of our democracy is on the line. And I truly believe that we are at an inflection point in the history of our country. I think of this as being a moment in time that is similar to a moment in time when my parents met when they were graduate students at the University of California, Berkeley in the 1960s and active in the civil rights movement. I think this is a moment that is challenging us as a country to look in a mirror and ask a fundamental question. That question being, who are we? Who are we? And as I look around this room, I know the answer to that question. As I look around this room, I see the best of what America is really about. And I see the best of what America can be, unburdened by what we have been. And I see in this room, and all that is represented in this room, the power of the people. And these past 18 months have demonstrated that the people in power are no match for the power of the people. So take, for example, right? Let's remember our victories in our fight. Let's always take time for a moment to pause and remember our victories. Take, for example, what happened with the Affordable Care Act. And remember what the pundits said. Remember how they said the ACA is dead? That we could not survive that attack? They said it was doomed. Remember? They said that the people in power would win and take away all the benefits that the Affordable Care Act brought. But now we all know they were wrong. Because what we remember is what we saw in terms of the power of the people. We saw that people traveled by plane, by train, by automobile. Thousands of families walked the halls of the United States Congress. Children with debilitating illness canvassed the Capitol for days on end. People, many who are here, held vigils day and night, all showing incredible strength and sacrifice. And they came from everywhere, determined to be seen, determined to share their stories, determined in their belief that if they were seen and if their stories were heard, that their government would do the right thing. And because of them, and thanks to the people in this room who organized and mobilized, together we blocked repeal of the Affordable Care Act, not once, not twice, but 3 times. And in so doing, let's remember the accomplishment of what that was. In so doing, we protected health care for millions of our fellow Americans. That's the power of the people, and the power of people who are determined to fight. So now let's fast forward to today, and where some pundits are saying that it's not worth fighting, a Supreme Court nominee, right? I ran into a journalist asked me that question just 2 minutes ago. Is it worth the fight? Damn right it's worth the fight. But you know, this is an informed group of folks. We know what they're saying. They've been saying that the fight may be too hard. They're saying success is too uncertain. Well, here's our point. A nominee who was handpicked by the Federalist Society, a nominee who passed a litmus test intent on ending a woman's right to choose, a nominee who thinks the President of the United States is above the law, is a nominee I know we should fight against tooth and nail. And there's another fight, which is happening in 95 short days, in the 95 days between now and election date. And the stakes could not be higher. And we all know that's going to be a tough fight. But we've been through tough fights. Just ask now Governor Ralph Northam and Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax and Delegate Danica Rome in Virginia. Just ask now Congressman Connor Lamb from Pennsylvania. Just ask Doug Jones, now the United States Senator from the great state of Alabama. And in November, as we organize and mobilize, we know what is at stake. Medicare for all is at stake, so let's use our power. Protecting our dreamers is at stake. Let's use our power. Voting rights are at stake. Let's use our power. Women's reproductive rights, climate change, and common sense gun laws are at stake. Let's use our power. And in so doing, Netroots Nation, as we use our power and get beyond this dark chapter, and we will get beyond it, but when we get beyond this dark chapter, part of it will be because we also agreed that in this moment, it is critically important that we speak truth. It is critically important that we speak truth. Now, here's the thing. There are a lot of people in our country right now who are rightly distrustful of their government, its institutions, and its leaders. There's no trust. And let's remember something about the nature of a relationship of trust. We know it in our personal, we know it in our professional lives. By its very nature, the relationship of trust is a reciprocal relationship. You give and you receive trust. And one of the most important ingredients in a relationship of trust, and in trust itself, is truth. But it's a funny thing about truth. Speaking truth can often make people quite uncomfortable. And for people like me, people who are candidates, people who are in elected office, there is an incentive that we will speak and the crowd will applaud, and we will sprinkle lovely dust, and everyone will walk away feeling quite lovely. But speaking truth doesn't always accomplish that goal. But there's another thing about speaking truth. Yes, people may walk away from that conversation thinking, you know, I didn't particularly like what I had to hear. But they will also walk away from that conversation knowing that it was an honest conversation. Knowing it was an honest conversation. So, uncomfortable though some truths must be, let's speak truth. Let's speak truth. That if it wasn't clear before Charlottesville, it is clear now racism is real in this country and we need to deal with that. Let's speak truth. Sexism is real in this country. Let's deal with it. Let's speak truth. Anti-Semitism, homophobia, transphobia are real in this country. Let's deal with it. And you know, it's interesting because I serve on the Senate Intelligence Committee, so I just have to share with you another component of that. The Russians know that truth. The Russians know those truths, because check it out. They attacked us demographically and geographically, and they're still trying to divide us and conquer. The Russians know racism and other forms of hate have always been America's Achilles heel, and we need to deal with that weakness. And let's speak truth. The Russians' attack, it continues to this day. And guys, what's with calling it meddling? I don't get that. I don't get that. That wasn't meddling. That was an act of cyber warfare. And by the way, conspiracy is a crime. Obstruction of justice is a crime, and anyone involved needs to be held accountable to the fullest extent of the law. And let's speak truth. We have an economy that's at work for those at the very top, but not for those doing the hardest work. We hear folks saying this economy is on the rise. You can turn on the TV, everyone's talking about the economy is on the rise. Well, you know, that may be true for shareholders and stockbrokers, but for most people in America, wages are flat while the cost of tuition, gas, and housing are climbing. That is a truth. A truth is that in 99% of the counties in the United States of America, if you are a minimum wage worker working 40 hours a week, you cannot afford a one-bedroom apartment at market rate. That's a truth. In fact, that's why I'm proud that we introduced a bill so that if you're paying more than 30% of your income in rent and utilities, you'll get some of your money back through a tax credit to cover those expenses. And why? And why? Because the point is obvious why. Because in the United States of America, nobody should have to work 2 or 3 jobs just to keep a roof over their head. And let's speak some other truths. The jobs of yesterday are leaving, and we need to prepare Americans for the jobs of tomorrow. And we must paint a picture of the future in which everyone can see themselves. That is critically important. And I know that's our vision of the future. And we must continue to do that. Paint a picture of the future in which everyone can see themselves. You know, like, if you ever look through a family album or you went to your friend's wedding and then you see the wedding album after and you start flipping the pages, am I in there? You know what I'm talking about. We need to paint a picture of the future in which everyone can see themselves. And we must speak further truths. We must speak the truth that in our country, too many unarmed black men and women are being killed. And too many black and brown Americans are being locked up. And from mass incarceration to money bail to policing, our criminal justice system has failed. Let's speak truth. And let's speak another truth. Ripping babies from their mother's arms is not border security. And when more than 400 of those children go to sleep tonight without their parents, that is called a human rights abuse. And let's speak one last truth. As we look at the beautiful coalition that is in this room, everyone we have seen at all these past marches in these past 18 months, the coalition that has been present, an uncomfortable truth is also that the folks, and this is going to be an uncomfortable truth, the truth is that the folks who helped build the Democratic Party and have been the backbone of the Democratic Party have not always been given equal voice in the Democratic Party, and we need to deal with that. We need to deal with that. And I'll go on with that point, if I may. So, we've all heard how critical black women were to Doug Jones's victory. But that didn't just magically happen. It happened because black women have been putting in the work, going door to door, organizing even when the cameras were focused elsewhere. And it's time to respect that leadership. It's time we address the issues that they uniquely face, such as the fact that black women are 3 to 4 times more likely to die because of a pregnancy than white women. Let's deal with that. Let's be aware of that and deal with that. And the truth is, we shouldn't just be thanking women of color for electing progressive leaders. In 2018, we should be electing women of color as those leaders. Now, I'm aware that some people would say that what I just said is playing, quote, identity politics. But I have a problem, guys, with that phrase, identity politics. Because let's be clear, when people say that, it's a pejorative. That phrase is used to divide and it is used to distract. Its purpose is to minimize and marginalize issues that impact all of us. It is used to try and shut us up. Because think about it. Think about when you've heard it raised. When we're talking about race, when we're talking about gender, when we're talking about sexual orientation, when we're talking about civil rights. And yes, we're talking about those issues. And we won't be shut up. And we won't be silenced. We won't be silent about immigrant rights. We won't be silent about a woman's right to control her own body. We will not be silent about equal opportunity and equal justice under the law. And let's be clear. These issues that they're trying to diminish and demean are the very issues that will define our identity as Americans. These are the very issues, among others, that will define our identity as Americans. And so, speaking then of American identity, at the end of the day, I truly believe, based on every experience I've had in life, I truly believe, at the end of the day, we all have so much more in common than what separates us. I truly believe that and know it to be true. I know that there are powerful voices right now that are trying to sow hate and division among us. But when it comes to issues that matter the most, I do not believe we are a divided country. I think about it through the lens of what I've been calling the 3 o'clock in the morning thought. You know, the middle of the night, some people call it the witching hour. You know, that moment in the middle of the night when you wake up sometimes in a cold sweat, thinking that thing that's been weighing on us. Well, for the vast majority of Americans, when they wake up thinking that thought in the middle of the night, it is never through the lens of the party with which they're registered to vote. When they wake up thinking that thought, It is never through some demographic a pollster put us in. And in fact, for the vast majority of folks, when they wake up thinking that thought, it has to do with one of just a very few issues: our personal health, the health of our children or our parents. For many Americans, can I get a job? Can I keep a job? Pay the bills by the end of the month? For so many of our students, can I pay off those student loans? Can I retire with dignity? The reality is, the vast majority of us have so much more in common than what separates us. And Netroots Nation, then, I think as we head into these fights, let's own that fact. Let's not buy into this stuff. I would use another word, but I'm not going to right now. Let's not buy into this stuff that they're trying to peddle, these powerful voices that are trying to sow hate and division. Let's hold on to the fact that we know on the fundamental issues, we all have so much more in common than what separates us. And let's also recognize, yes, these are difficult days. These are difficult days, and many of us are tired. Many are overwhelmed. But at this moment, we cannot throw up our hands when it is time to roll up our sleeves. And what keeps me going, and I think for all of us, what keeps us going, is we do know we are better than this. We do know we are better than this. The American people know we are better than this. And I know we are better than this when I just think of a couple of things right now. I know that we are better than this because 13 years ago, New Orleans was underwater. And the initial response was appalling. And Katrina exposed a shocking level of racism and neglect. But ultimately, Americans of every race and religion and background, local leaders, church groups, college students, came together to bring this city back to life. That's who we are. That's our American identity. I know we're better than this because less than 60 years ago, about 4 miles up the road, Ruby Bridges needed federal marshals to escort her to school. And yet today, Mayor LaToya Cantrell is the first woman and first black woman in history to lead this city. That's who we are. That's our American identity. And I know we're better than this because this city was once home to the nation's largest slave market, and yet today, you heard from Cory Booker and Kamala Harris, 2 members of the United States Senate. That's who we are. That's our American identity, and that's the one we're going to own and fight for. And that's what makes this fight, then, a fight that is born out of love of country. Out of love of country, and knowing it's worth fighting for. And knowing, yes, we are a country that is aspirational. We've not achieved all of those ideals, but we have those ideals, and it is part of our identity to fight for those ideals. So let's not let anybody take our flag from us, okay? That's our flag. Let's not let anybody take that flag from us. And then, finally, I'm just going to make another point. Years from now, our children, our grandchildren, folks are going to come up to us, and they're going to ask us, they're going to look at us, and they're going to ask us, so where were you during that inflection moment? And I'm going to be proud to say I was here with you. And what I know about this group is that in answering that question, where were you during that inflection moment? The answer for the folks in this room is not simply going to be about how we felt. The answer is going to be what we did, what action we took, And so Netroots Nation, let's answer that question by saying we registered people to vote. We took people to the polls. We called and we texted and we told everyone at New, everyone we know, what is at stake. It is about the future of our country. It is about our identity as a nation. We are better than this, and we will fight. And